Hi, I'm James, and this is a video to get you started with the Apex Charts plugin for Bubble from Zeroqode. Just before we jump into it, if you need any help building your app or product, feel free to reach out to our team by visiting our website at zeroqode.com. We're the largest maker of plugins for Bubble, as well as the top gold tier Bubble agency. We have almost 10 years of experience and can help you build any web, mobile, or AI product, or even help automate your business. While you're there, make sure you check out zeroqode.com/plugins. This is the full list of all the plugins we make, and there's over 800 of them, probably even more by the time you watch this. There's something there to cover pretty much everything your app could possibly need to do. For example, there's Stripe Marketplace Express for accepting payments within your app, Mapbox Maps for super customizable advanced maps functionality, AWS File Uploader, which is great for saving on Bubble hosting costs, and so many more. So make sure you check all that out as well. So let's start with an overview of this plugin. So the Apex Charts plugin gives you the functionality to add 54 fully customizable, really beautifully interactive charts within your Bubble app. I think the best thing we can do is jump straight into a demo and have a look at what they look like and what can be done. So from the plugin page here, I'm going to click the live demo button, and this is going to open up a pre-built Bubble app with the plugin already installed or configured with a bunch of different configurations that we can explore and see how they work from a user's point of view. So we can see a line chart here, see a multi-line chart here. There's a bunch of different configurations, and we can really see the interactivity and hover states of all of these and what can be done, as well as some of the workflows here. For interacting with these different charts. I really do recommend having a look at these yourself and playing around with them, as there are so many different iterations and ways these charts can be implemented, and depending on your particular use case. So have a look here to see if what you're wanting to build is possible with this plugin. But as you can see, so many different options. So it's highly likely that you will be able to configure something that is matching what your app needs to do. If I go back to the plugin page here, the second link I want to talk about is the demo editor button. Now this will open up the exact same app that we just saw, but from the Bubble editor's point of view. So we can go in and we can see how this is all put together and all the properties and parameters and how it's all set up, as well as some of the workflows here that are attached to each button. And we can see all the different actions and workflows available to us. As you can see, there are quite a lot, depending on the type of chart that you're wanting to work with. So have a look at that as well. It's a really great way to get up to speed with what the plugin can do before installing and configuring it yourself. Back on the plugin page here, similarly to the demo editor, is the documentation link here. Now this is going to be really important, especially for a plugin that's as customizable and extensible and powerful as this particular plugin. So for every single type of chart, you can see in the documentation, we have how to set it up, all the different fields, what they all mean, and their relative actions as well that can be used to work within that particular chart. Super comprehensive, really detailed, and everything you need to get this set up. So what I normally do is keep the documentation link open in a separate tab while I'm working, and I can reference it and go back and forth and make sure that I can build what I saw in the demo app and make it match. The last thing I want to mention on this page is our chat widget in the bottom right here. If you have any questions about this plugin, about its capabilities, before installing, while installing, troubleshooting, send us a message here. We would love to help you out and get you up and running. All right, let's jump into Bubble and see how to set this up. Once we're in the Bubble editor, first thing we need to do is actually get this plugin into our app. So on the left-hand menu here, click on the Plugins tab, and then the button in the top right, Add Plugins. We're going to search for Apex Charts. And this is the one up here, Apex Chart, 54 Charts and Graphs by Zeroqode. Now, there are two ways you can install this plugin in your app. There's a once-off purchase or there's a monthly subscription. The monthly subscription is actually the cheapest and most risk-free way to try out this plugin, as you're only charged for the days that you have the plugin installed and active in your app, and you're charged on a pro rata basis. So if you install this plugin into your app and try it out for a day and configure it and figure out it's not quite right for your use case, and you delete it from your app the day after, you'd only be charged for that one day. So in this case, $9 divided by 30 days in the month. So very risk-free, great way to test this out before committing to a larger purchase. But whichever way you go, install this plugin, and let's jump back to the editor. All right, now that we have the plugin installed in our app, let's see what we can build. Now, this is a tricky one to make a video for, as there's so many possibilities and configurations and advanced implementations, as we just saw in the demo app. So what I'm thinking I'll do, we'll just make two basic charts, and we'll look at the actual process of setting them up and how to configure them. And that then can be extended into more advanced implementations, depending on what your app needs. based on the documentation in the demo app. So yeah, let's jump in and see what we can build. So what I'm thinking we'll have a fictional kind of e-commerce app here, and we want to look at some analytics from order data. So we'll have two graphs or two charts. One is a bar chart of how many sales per country, and then another one of how many sales, a line chart of how many sales per month. To do these, I've set up a data type in our data tab here called, where are we? Orders. And in here, I've just got two fields, the country and the order date, and it's a text and a date data types. And I've put in just some example entries here, just across a couple of countries and a couple of dates. And we'll be able to display this data from our database using the charts with the plugin. All right, let's go back to the design tab and see what we can do. So if we go to our assets section on the left and type in chart, we can see just how many different types of charts we can play with now that we have the plugin installed. There's a lot here. So what we're going to start with is just a simple bar chart. I'll drag that onto my canvas here. I'll change the layout to a column just so things stack nicely. And there we are. This is our element. So in our properties panel, we can see everything that we can control and change and edit to customize this chart and how it looks and behaves. So we have a bunch of information about the data source and how it's going to be expressed. And scroll a bit farther. Below that, we have all the style options. And you'll see this goes really, really detailed down to the toolbar, to the grid options, and then all the options for the x-axis and the y-axis, the titles, and more options outside of that, but more styling options in terms of size and animation speed and active colors. And there's a lot there. You can make this look and behave so that it feels completely native and as if it was made for your app. So the first thing we want to do is get some data into this chart. As if we go preview now, we just have a blank empty chart here with no information. So let's put some data in. The series name I'm going to put as orders, as that's the information we want to display. Now the series data, we want to do a search for our orders. There we go. But we want to group these by a particular parameter within that data type. So I'll say group by, and I'll add a new grouping. And I want to group these by the country that the order came from. As you know, we want to show a bar chart of every single country's orders and how many orders come from each country. So I'll select a country and I'll add an aggregation. And the aggregation is count. We want to count how many are there in each country. Great. That's not quite right yet, though. We still have an error here. That's a list. If we look at our error message here, it's a list of groupings. We need it to be a list of numbers. So at the end of this, I will then say each item's count. So what it's going to do, it's going to do a search for all our orders. It'll then group all the orders by their country. And then this action here will count how many are in each group. And that's what we'll display. Looking good. So if we hit preview now, let's see what we end up with. Okay, we have some data in the app, but we have nothing here that really tells us what it is. There's no country names. There's no, we have decimals showing when, you can't really have half an order. So let's go and keep configuring. First thing, let's change the decimals to be 0 decimal points, as an order is a whole number. And let's actually look at some of these buttons underneath here for some clues as to our next step. So you'll see every single one of these properties has a show documentation link underneath it. And that'll give us some more information about what that field is for and doing. So if we click on where we filled out the series data, where the data's coming in, this is our y-axis data, the list of numbers. And that made sense. That's our bar graph information itself. But one below that, series category, what do we have? This is the x-axis data. So that'll be a list of texts. So this would be the label along this area here. Right now it's just 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let's make that actually show the name of the countries. So similar to what we did up here, I'm going to do a search for our orders. I'm going to group them. I'm going to add a new grouping and I'll group them by country. Add a new aggregation. We want to count them. But instead of saying then each item's count, we will say each item's country. And that there will get the label of each group, the country associated with each group, and display that underneath our x-axis, underneath each bar. All right, let's hit preview and see what we end up with. There we go. That's looking a bit better. We have Australia, Japan, New Zealand, and UK. And if I hover over, I can see Australia orders 2, Japan orders 1, order 1 for New Zealand, and then 3 for the UK. This is what we want. This is looking great. Now, I won't go through all the styling options here, as that's very unique to your app, but you can go through and adjust these and change the colors and the drop shadows and the strokes and all of that sort of thing, whether there's a grid in the background or not, as there's, a lot there that you can make it feel right at home in your app. But I will put in some titles. Let's put in country as the x-axis title, and then we'll say, let's say number of orders for the y-axis title. Let's see what we end up with. There we go. That's looking a bit better. Now we can see that the country's along here. How many orders we have is here. This is looking nice and clean. Now, there's one other thing I want to point out here is this section, the toolbar options. So we have an option to show the toolbar and enable download. And if we click show documentation, this option adds a toolbar to the top right-hand side of the chart. So you might have noticed that there in our previews. That's this hamburger menu here. If we click on that, we can see that we have options to download SVG, PNG, and a CSV of the data. Super useful. Really, really good for working with data and exporting it out of your app and either displaying it somewhere or working with the numbers further with a CSV. So this is built in natively to the chart itself. But depending on how you want your chart to look and behave and feel in your app, you may not want to use this particular implementation. So you can do exactly the same thing with a custom workflow. I will put in a button here, put it directly underneath, and let's for this one just say download PNG. All right. With this button selected, I'm going to click add a workflow. And in our actions menu here, if I type chart, we can see here generate PNG URL from a bar chart is one of the options. That's exactly what we want. We only have one bar chart on our page, so that's the only one that's selected. And that there will create a URL where the PNG is currently living. That doesn't necessarily download it though. So from that point, we have a URL, and that, as we can see here, it triggers an event called PNG URL is created. So now we can go here for a second event, and we can see in our elements, we have here a bar chart PNG URL is created. So when that happens, which we know is caused by this first one, and the user clicks the button, it's going to generate the URL. When the URL is generated, it'll trigger this workflow. We can then, we might have a download plugin installed in our app. For our use case here, I'm going to say open an external website, and the URL is going to be this bar charts PNG URL, and we'll open it in a new tab. All right, so what that workflow does, you click download PNG, that's just a quick summary, download PNG, it'll generate a URL for that PNG, and once that URL exists, that triggers this workflow, which opens a link in a new tab, and the link is the URL that was just generated. So let's try that out. I'll click download PNG, it'll create the PNG, open a new tab, and here we go. Here is our chart as a PNG. Looking great. Now, once you have that URL, of course, you can do whatever you want with it. You can save it somewhere, you can display it somewhere. That's just the source URL for that PNG. Okay, that's looking good. Let's look at our second chart then. Let's look at a chart for how many orders are coming in per month. And for that one, we're going to do a line chart. Put that below here. Well, I think we're getting a bit messy in here. Let's group these two together. And then in the page itself, we can start to put some gaps between this. Let's say 60 pixels. Nope, had the wrong thing selected there. That's better. Okay, here's our second one. This is our line chart. And similar to what we just did in our previous one, we need to display the data. So the first thing we can see, this is our y-axis data. This is the list of numbers. This is the actual information that's going into our app. So similar to what we did previously, we're going to do a search in our database for orders. But we're going to do some extra things in this particular chart. We're going to sort these by order date and descending as yes. And that's going to put them in a bit of an order for us. Just like our previous one, we then want to group. We're going to group by, add a new group, and we'll group by order date. Now, because this is a date, this is going to give us some extra options that we need to configure. We're going to specify what type of grouping we want. We don't want exact or day, we want month. And the interval is every 1 month, as we want each month displayed on our chart. You can do this by quarter, if you want to do it every 3 months, or by year, every 12 months, depending on what you want to display. The starting date, we could say the date of our first order, but I'm actually just going to say an arbitrary date and time and put it for a few months before our first order. So maybe we say October the 1st, 2024, and it is right at the start of the day. Cool. Now, the reason I've done that, if we go to our database, these are the example dates I put in. All of the order dates are all in this year, in 2025. So I want our chart to begin just a bit before so we can see, zero, no orders, and then it start to grow in terms of orders. Okay, now we're still not quite there. We need to add an aggregation. We want to aggregate by count. And now we can go to, we also want to make sure that we include empty groups, as we do have a few months with no orders. So this will include months that have 0 orders and still display them on the chart. But we now need to specify an ending date. And for this, I will choose the date of our most recent order. So the chart ends at the current, the current order, basically. So again, I'll do a search for our orders. There we are. I will sort by order date, and descending, I'll say no for this one here. All right. Oh, we still need to specify this. So we have our search for orders, and then we want the last item's order date. That's our ending date. Okay, cool. Now, the last thing we need to do, now that we have it grouped and we're aggregating by count, we can now go in here and say each item's count. Whew, there we go. So that'll display all the orders grouped by the month they were ordered in and how many orders are in that month on our chart. We'll keep our decimal at 0 because each order can only be a whole number. And let's have a quick preview and see what we get. Okay, here's our second chart. We have information in here. We don't have any context. We just have numbers along here and numbers along here, and null is our label. But we can see that we have 3 of these with 0, 1 with 2, 2 with 2, and a third with 3. That looks like what we want it to be. We need to put some more information in here. So we want to put our category, our x-axis. So this is quite similar. Again, we're going to do a search in our database for our orders. And we will sort by order date. And ascending is yes. Okay, looking good so far. Now we need to group them. So we're going to group. We'll add any grouping. We will group them by order date. The type of grouping is month, just like we did last time. We'll do an interval of 1 month. And the starting date will be the arbitrary date again. And I'll put in October the 1st, 2024 again. It's actually the same because we want that to match. Cool. I'll also check this box again as well. Do not skip empty groups. And our ending date will be what we did before, which is our most recent order. So I'll say no for the order date. Say no for descending, sorting by order date. And we will say the last item's order date with that search. Okay, cool. Now the aggregation, we need to do a count. Whew. And now for the next step in this expression, I will say each item's order date, not count. We actually want the date here to display in the x-axis, but we want it to be formatted differently. So I'm going to say each item formatted as, and we don't really want it to display a full numerical number like this. We probably just want the name of each month. So for format type, I'll click the drop down. We'll skip all of these because these are a bit too lengthy for what we're looking for, and I'll go custom. And this gives all the options for our custom formatting. For us, we don't want day, 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 month, day, year. We'll backspace everything except for month, 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 month. Everything else can be removed. And there we go. We can see our formatting is formatted as March. So to recap, we've done a search for orders. We are sorting them by the order date. We're descending yes. Then we're grouping the results of that search by the order date. The type of grouping is the month, and the interval is every 1 month. We're starting this grouping by October in 2024, a few months before the example data in our database. We're including months that have no orders. And the ending date is the date of our most recent order. Aggregation is count. And then we can do each item's order date. And we're formatting the order date as month, 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 which is just the name of the month. Okay, that was a lot there. Let's do a preview and see what we end up with. Okay, there we go. Look at that. We have month names underneath. That's looking good. We have numbers on the left, month names at the bottom, but we still have null here on each of our hovers. And we want that to say orders, because that will tell us how many orders there are in that month. Let's go back and fix that. If we go to series name and we put in orders here, and now preview. There we go. We now have the word orders in our tooltip, and it's all looking quite nice. Last thing, let's put in our axis titles. So the x-axis, we want to put in month, and the y-axis, we will say number of orders. Let's hit preview again. There we go. We can see exactly how many orders came in every single month. We can see the number of orders on the side, the label for month along here. And we can go in as well if we want to and do some fun things like change it to be a smooth line. And that looks just a little bit more organic. There we go. That's quite nice. Now, there's so many styling options we can go in and change if we want to, as we saw before. So I'll leave that for you for anything that you want to make that look specifically for your app. One last thing I want to show here is a workflow with displaying extra data in a pop-up once you click on one of the indexes. So I will add a pop-up to our page. And let's put in some information. So I will put in here line chart A's selected label. And I'll put a second text in here that says line chart A's selected value. Now that doesn't do much for us yet. So let's make it actually do something. I'm going to click on this here. I'll scroll right down to the bottom of the properties here and enable events. And we can see written above here, it says to enable a data point clicked event, the following checkbox should be checked. So that means we now have an event we can play with in our workflow section. We also need to make the marker size greater than 0. So let's find marker size. Marker size. There we go. It's 0. So let's make it 2 just for good measure. Okay. Now that we have events enabled, we can go to our workflow tab. Let's have a look at some events. Here we go. When a line chart data point is clicked. So that means what we're doing here is we're doing an action to display some data when a user clicks on one of these points here. We want to show a pop-up that shows more information about that particular point. So when let me close that. When a data point in a line chart is clicked, line chart A is our only line chart, so that's fine. We want to show an element. And we're going to show the pop-up we made, pop-up A. And because what we put in that pop-up A, which I will show now, was the selected label and the selected value, it'll populate the information in these text fields of whichever data point I clicked on. So let's try it out. Let's click on January to start with. There we go. I click on that. We have a pop-up that says January and 2. That's exactly what we see. 2 here. There are 2 orders in January. Now we can go in here and make this actually look and feel a little bit nicer, you know, because it's a little bit sad at the moment. So we might say, where are we? We might say month. And then after that, we will say line chart A selected label. And maybe we put month in bold. And an underline. And then the one below that, let's clear that and say number of orders. And then we put in line chart A's selected value. Let's see what that looks like. There we go. January, number of orders 2. Let's go to March. There we go. We have 3 orders. So you can display a lot more in that pop-up. Of course, there might be a lot more information with this particular data entry in your database you want to display. You could do a list of all the orders. You could do the customers that placed those orders. You could put images of every single order and show a lot more information in this pop-up based on the data point that's clicked. Now, like I said, there's so much more that this plugin can do. You can have multiple series in one particular graph. You can have different styling and colors and animations and showing annotations on top of the app, on top of the data. There's so much you can do with this. So have a play with this, look at the documentation, try it out with your own data and your own app. And yeah, you'll be able to make some pretty cool, really stunning looking graphs and charts. But what we've done today should be enough to get you started and see how each of the charts work, the properties panel, getting data into your chart and displaying it, and then ways you can style and adjust it as well. So that's about it for this video. Thank you for watching. I hope this is helpful. And if you have any questions at all about this plugin, any of our plugins, troubleshooting, installing, send us a message. We'd love to help out. Happy building.